But Julio has like snuck his way up to almost a 4-win season, partially abbreviated by injury. I think if we were to look at his offensive numbers in the second half, we're looking at like something closer to 2023 Julio at the worst, maybe somewhere between 2023 and 2022 Julio. And what does that give you? I guess like, does that make you? So the big thing you were worried about that I agree with, maybe you and I were worried about when they extended Victor Robles, is that they would not view Victor Robles as a fourth outfielder. They would view him as a starter that they got for backup money, right? And he's continued to hit. In fact, I think he's gotten better since you and I talked about that. And then Julio Rodriguez has probably alleviated concerns. Any concern that he may need someone to spell him in 2025 in center field. Is it good or bad for the Mariners at this point if Julio rips off a big,
Yeah. I mean, I think the trend is well established at this point. Julio starts slow and he finishes strong, which is good if the rest of your team can kind of carry him through those down months early in the season. They have not proven to be able to do that, and that's a problem, which sucks. It sucks for Julio because you would think if these games really mattered, I mean, they still kind of matter, but if they really mattered down the stretch, then you would be getting your best player hot at the time when you need him to be at his best, right? Like that would be an amazing trend. The problem is Julio starts so miserably slow. It's not like he's treading water as an average player through the first couple months. Like he's actually and at times a liability, which is problematic because it really kind of speaks to how much he picks it up in the second half of the year, that he puts together good seasons in spite of how badly he starts. So now they got, for the Mariners, it's almost like, okay, yeah, you're right. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. They're doing the same thing they do every September where they basically find themselves completely outside the playoff picture at the start of the month and then somehow scrape and crawl their way back into it and try to get your interest back by the end of the month. But assuming they do miss the playoffs, I mean, their focus needs to be on how do we get Julio going early next year so that we're not waiting until September for him to actually be performing at his best. Like, what does it take? I know a lot of fans are saying, oh, Edgar Martinez helped fix Julio, and maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's truly what it is. But something has to change next year. I know fans also say, like, the audience, or I guess the offense is being credited to Edgar Martinez and the changes he made, the simplification of his philosophy. And that might be true. I don't think you're getting Edgar Martinez back next year. I feel like him coming on board with Dan Wilson, the last 2 months of this season, were as a favor to an ex-teammate and not necessarily something he wants to engage in full-time next season. So you're going to have to make some moves here in the offseason that help kind of continue this trend you've seen with Edgar, and then also build upon whatever this is in September that they seem to do every year. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I don't think they have a lot of money. I think they're going to try and run this back with the same guys that they have now. And so you're really just asking these guys to perform better than they did this year.
I'm going to give you, before we play the home run game, so prepare for the home run game, but I'm going to give you some Julio stats, first half, second half. First half, 5.7% walk rate, 27.4% strikeout rate, 104 WRC plus, but that's like, he had a decent May, a 104 WRC plus May that really helped him, and a pretty strong July. And then just disastrous March, April, and June. And then, so he was a 104 WRC plus first half, 139 WRC plus second half. So I was actually basically exactly right. He was right in between 2023 and 2022 Julio. And I could see those things being attributed to Edgar. Like those, if he just started hitting balls and having better luck, I'd be a lot less excited about it than if like the strikeout rate's down, the walk rate's up, the power's up. Everything that you really care about is improving. Everything that is projectable into 2025 is improving. Just how do we, like you said, how do you make it start in April instead of August,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about great players. You want them to be consistent. Like if you get all of your stats in a, one giant streak in a month, I mean, it's nice for that month, certainly, sure. But like the best players are the ones that can carry it through an entire season. And that's just what we haven't seen yet from Julio. And that's, I mean, it's a lot on his shoulders because they just don't get him a lot of help in that lineup. but he's got to find a way. I mean, he is what they've invested in. He is the franchise at this point. And now we're getting to a point as he gets older and kind of starts to enter his prime where he's going to have to deliver on it, fair or unfair, regardless of what they have around him. So we'll see what comes next.
This is crazy. If this is true, this is great. I didn't realize this. One more thing. This is from Daegu Dave. I'm like scared to pronounce that wrong and offend all of Italians across the country. One more thing. If the Mariners were to win all 6 games, it would be their longest winning streak this season by 2 games. That's wild that their longest winning streak has been 4 games, but it makes sense. You can't get through one time through this not actually that historic rotation without
Well, I mean, they never had the streak this year that they typically had the last 2 years that really put them in a good position. We know they got up by 10 games in the division in June, and then they really just kind of like sat back and didn't do a whole lot from that point forward. It's like they took it for granted instead of really advancing their lead and trying to keep their foot on the gas. And that sucks because what they did the last 2 years with those giant winning streaks that kept things going, that's not scalable. You can't expect those level of winning streaks every year. And, it makes sense that they wouldn't do it this year. And yeah, I don't, it's like, even if they happen to sneak in and make the playoffs at this point, nobody cares. There's just no energy for it whatsoever.